Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. Tonight's show, Xtreme TV. I'm your host, Rob. I am broadcasting you from the Indian Hill Studios in the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. It's a 90-degree, wet, muggy day here in Central Florida in the hood with the choppers all about. And you know, I've got a background chat of RDV and Professor Pixel joining me talking about pizza. And I got to tell everybody who's listening right now, we are doing Fear the Walking Dead Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2 on Season 1 Sundays. And I am a pizza snob. I like the flat, thin stuff and only from melon mushrooms. So anybody else that doesn't like it, suck it. And that level of passion, gentlemen, is what I expect as we start to dive in to Season 1 of Fear the Walking Dead, a show that I never gave 1 ounce of thought to because after about the first season of the original Walking Dead on AMC, I thought the show sucked. Like many people, I watched it just because it was there and it was on, but usually I was doing dishes, vacuuming, you know, combing my dog, organizing my sock drawer, because after about 3 or 4 seasons, I could only handle so much of Rick going, Carl, basically being cucked out and, you know, raising, you know, some other dudes, the Punisher's, you know, kid or whatever. And it just really kind of sucked. But I think the original Walking Dead sent a great template for what a show could be. And I still stand fast about it, that I still think Z Nation is a lot more entertaining. And I have to say this, for Fear the Walking Dead, I didn't give it any respect whatsoever because it seemed like it was going to be a lesser spin-off show, which to me usually sucks. As the great Rick Barry once said about Wilt Chamberlain, I was wrong. Because I got to tell you guys, my initial thoughts are, I'm 4 episodes in. I just we're talking about 1 and 2 tonight of Fear the Walking Dead. I loved them, but I have a big hate bone that I've got to get off my chest. And the only reason why I hate it so much is because I think the show's been so damn good. And I know it's early and only 6 episodes. But let's go around the horn for our initial quick thoughts or whatever. Let's go to RDV. And RDV, you're the one that's been talking about this. You kind of mentioned it to me. Based off the success of some other stuff you've mentioned, I decided to watch it. What's your initial take on Fear the Walking Dead Season 1?
Well, Season 1, we start with the first 2 episodes. Kim Dickens, who plays Madison Clark, she plays Nick's mother. Nick, played by Frank Delaney. Nick is a troubled kid. His mom is just a counselor at a school in Los Angeles. His sister, she's played by Alicia Demban, previously also from the 100. This is where she jumped from that show to this show after her character was killed off. But don't worry, she doesn't die. But anyway, she plays Alicia Clark. Alicia is the younger sister of Nick. Alicia basically is, what I liked about it is that she is the typical younger sister, hates her brother, doesn't believe him because he's Nick's he's a juggy. And he clearly right off the get-go, we basically see him basically, you know, shooting up in this abandoned little church, little Met, you know, which is believable because I'm sure there are places where people go, you know, and the cops don't care because as long as the person dies, they die. Not saying all cops are like that, but anyway, the show would basically just like Walking Dead. Nick is the main character in this show. Nick is the person that you want to be watching and focus on, because what Nick does basically pushes the story forward. Without Nick, the family wouldn't really notice what's going on. And
I got that same vibe too, that it's Nick's show, even though they do bounce around from these characters. Yes. I don't know if I think him as a hero, but it sounds like what you're saying is overall for these first 2 episodes, what you like is the fact that they're using what would be the word I'd use, a dysfunctional family.
He's the protagonist in this, and you have a bunch of little more antagonists, you know, or semi-antagonists, because the family's dysfunctional. And what better way to cause more drama than this before the beginning of basically the end, the zombie apocalypse? Right. So, anyway, so Nick's has a history of being in and out of rehab, doing drugs, you know, and what makes it good about him being the main character is that the other character is his family, knowing who he is, they think he's a liar. They don't believe him when he first sees us, you know, especially with the second episode.
Yep.
Yeah, we have some other characters in here in this first 2 episodes. We have played by what's his name? What's the dad's name? But anyway,
well, we'll get to him. But overall,
Cliff Curtis, who plays Travis Mann. He's supposed to be his mom's new boyfriend. Neither one of the kids like him. They think, even his own son doesn't like this guy. This guy is a stuck-up teacher. He obviously he couldn't keep his own marriage together, so he goes for a wife, someone who actually works with him at the school, which I thought would wow, gee, you'd both get fired if you get caught.
Well, let's leave it there. So dysfunctional family sounds like the theme and where you want to take it to. Pick. So what about you? What are your initial thoughts?
I just have a couple notes from what we've all said. He is now known as Nick Grimes.
Nick Grimes. Nick Grimes. That's a good one. I didn't think of that.
Two, that daughter you mentioned was not only in the 100, she is the hot lesbian chiefess from the 100. That's worth noting. But moving on, I feel RDV did not just want us to see this show. He shoved this show at us.
It was a bit of a hard sell.
Huh?
It was a bit of a hard sell. You're right.
Yes, and I do agree with you on some notes, Rob. But I don't hate The Walking Dead. I just dropped off after watching the 3rd season at some point. I can't even remember when. But I gave no mind to the spinoff at all. I thought they're really just trying to milk this, aren't they? They want The Walking Dead everywhere.
Which I think that's fine and everything too, but based on how quickly the original Walking Dead started to suck, I gave this no chance because it was obviously a couple years in. It debuted in 2015. So let me give you my themes to kind of start from and tie it into what you guys have to say. I think the two biggest things that I've consistently talked about on our season 1 Sundays when it comes to story, and this is not necessarily movies, even though here at the Extreme Movie Show, that's primarily what we cover. We do cover some TV, is that, okay, well, I'm not the biggest comic book fan in the world myself. I do understand there's a strong market from it and the characters came from that. As a casual viewer of The Walking Dead and now Fear the Walking Dead, that didn't matter to me. I wasn't going to be upset if the characters were not the same as what was in the graphic novels, okay? But that's what I want to start with, and that's this. I think it's very difficult for a reader, for a viewer, for somebody trying to be emotionally invested in something to want to keep watching. If you don't care about the characters, nothing else matters. You have to have a reason for it. And what was frustrating to me for season 1, and again, I'm talking for me the bad first because I feel very strongly about it, and then I want to talk about the really, really strong, positive, good stuff because I think there's a lot of it, is the dysfunctional family angle. Okay, I know early on I'm being forced to take that. So I agree with you, RDV. The opening scene in the church with Nick, that is an all-timer hook. That was fantastic stuff. It was good. And I have to say that I don't hate him, but he's a drug dealer, so I can't trust him. But yet as a viewer, we all know he's seeing the truth and nobody's believing him. It's just it really started to get really bad for me with the mom because, the scene where we kind of see both of them together, and I think they're engaged actually at this point. But you're right, they're both on their second serious relationships leading towards marriage. He's fixing the sink, so you get the idea it's a middle-class family. I like this. I'm going to disagree with you guys about the daughter, I think, here when we talk about her in a moment. But I just got the feeling this wife, or soon-to-be wife, or fiance, she couldn't be bothered 2 shits from Sunday to deal with this guy that's supposed to be her future husband. She just gave me this vibe of unapproachable, not bitchiness, but just whatever. And it just really soured me, turned me off. She was just constantly whining. It was just her resting bitch face was really noticeable. And like the guy fixes the sink. He seems to be a solid guy, a little bit of a wimp, but not a complete puss. And he seems to be somewhat functional. And yes, he's an English teacher in high school, the same high school she's at. So you're like, okay, I guess that's the best they can each do if that's how some people want to think. But it doesn't feel bad. It feels realistic, and that's what's so engaging about this show. It's just they have no chemistry at all together. And then when the one kid brings the knife into school and she kind of does this little trickery thing to get the knife from the kid and leave him on, as somebody that's spent time in education like everybody else, totally unbelievable the way she handles the situation. So to me, I'm immediately going, I don't know what her backstory is because I only know what's presented. But I think the guy's 10 times better than her, and she's completely acting completely on emotion, completely phony, and just a complete emotional wreck. And I'm just not feeling the positivity from her at all. And that really is my biggest complaint about this show, is her as this character from the first 2 episodes. What do you guys think of that?
Well,
I have to. I'm sorry. I just want to say that I kind of disagree. Like, I understand what you're saying, and she does suffer from RBF, absolutely.
Yes.
But I feel like how she handles things, she's trying to keep everything together. She's trying to be basically the glue, trying to keep all the pieces. As soon as she hears her son sick, she goes running. And while I don't like how she handled the interaction with the police officer, she was trying to go in there because, hey, that's my son. If you're not arresting him, get out. And he's been missing for some time from her for I don't know how long. But I feel like the moment that she has with her fiance, they feel very real, like you said. And while she does seem kind of stone-faced, I don't think that makes her a bad person. I
didn't say she was a bad person.
Oh.
Okay.
Yet.
I just want to point out that she's disheveled. Her whole life is basically, she
single mom alert.
She's single mom.
She's widowed. We find out, but yes.
Yeah, we find out later that she's widowed. But Nick has a history of drug abuse, and she just doesn't know what to do. She's at the point where she wants to give up, and she even asks Alicia, "Does it make me a bad person?" And she's like, "It makes you human."
I feel like, especially in the second episode, where she is basically with the fat know-it-all kid that I wish would stick around longer, but I'm in episode 3 and he doesn't show up at all.
No,
right.
But I'll point out though, everything you see in the show, just like Walking Dead, plays a point. You'll see it like from Dusk to Dawn. You're gonna see more stuff in the next couple episodes, maybe a season down later. What's great about these people who make this series, they put detail into this stuff.
Yes, I will say that's
like
true.
the way Rob's reacting to her. That's how they want you to react to her.
I know. I know. And the thing too is, I know that RDV. It triggers me so much because Tobias, the knife nerd, as I wrote down here, I'm going, I like this kid, and of course he's the one that like knows it all ahead of before everybody else.
Well, yeah, it's
and
all over.
There's some really good details, and I want to talk about that in terms of not the characters, but right now I'm just trying to talk about the characters with the mom, because you're right. There's some really good stuff in here.
I mean, the mom is, she has a resting bitch face, that's just the way she is, as an actress, and some people just can't help it. It could be because she's older, but who knows? But aside from the point, when she tells the officer to get out of the room, are you charged with anything? Because at that point, she's so frustrated, she's ready to collapse because she's been worried sick because she doesn't know if he's dead this time. And then here comes, she sees the cops and they're harassing him. She's like, I just want to have a moment with my son. Can you please leave it? And so, and by law, they did find stuff in the system, toxology and stuff, but they did not. How much did they find in the system? Was it enough to charge him or whatever? And she said, "Are you going to charge him now?" No. And then again, come back later when he's actually got a clean bill of health, and you can do your stuff. No. But right now, I want a moment with my son because she was working. She was freaking out.
I also want to touch upon he is a drug addict. He's not a dealer. He's an addict.
Yeah,
correct.
But while he does have serious elements in which, no, we can't trust him because I'm not going to go into the scene that I was thinking of because that's episode 3. But we see what he's going through. So while, yes, regularly he's not trustworthy to his family, but to us, we can absolutely trust him because we're seeing it from mostly his point of view. He is Nick Grimes. He's the one we have to cling on to, at least for now. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to a little bit more about some of these other characters because, again, like I say, for me, a biggest thing is if you don't care about a character that you can latch on to, or a particular scenario, I think it's hard to stay in it. And for a show that's got 5 or 6 seasons now, getting ready to start, I think, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. But I will say that, a couple episodes in, I'm seeing a lot of detail about it. And one of the things too about these characters is it's okay if you have a dysfunctional family. I think a really smart thing is that this seems to come across as very real. High school isn't as smooth as even what we were shown in there, and it's not an uppity high school either. It's not complete ghetto, but it feels like they're in their 40s and they're teaching, and they're all that they can get together, with each other, and it's not a bad thing.
You mean she's not Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds?
Right, or any of that other crap that's glamorized. Right. But I will tell you that for the characters, usually teenagers are good for nothing for the most part. I mentioned about, Tobias, the knife nerd. I like how in episode 2, the mom, and him meet, because she's going to school to get drugs for Nick, which is okay. That's kind of cool. The problem is even if I give the mom a pass, which I have so far, the thing that's upset me the most about her and some of the characters in here is that the way things are written for them. Like, for example, I was saying about usually teenagers not being any good. Nick doesn't bother me being a druggie. He doesn't. Normally I would be like, okay, he's untrustworthy because he's a druggie or whatever like that. But you're right, guys. The way it's presented, the way we see things through his eyes, okay, it is revolving around him. And then we're seeing how it affects the other people in his immediate life. Basically, like, 2 families. And I actually thought, going back to the teenager thing, that, the daughter, she was like, I'm trying to think of a nice word to say it. I think for the first scene or two with her, because she's kind of hot, but she's not looking hot. I don't know how to explain it. So your eyes are definitely on her. She's not too pretty where she stands out, but she's, supposed to be a smart girl and this, that. And of course she's, got a boyfriend who, again, they have no chemistry either. I'm looking at this going, the real scenarios, but the acting is really good, but some of the chemistry I'm not buying. But then there's a scene with her where she gets with Nick and they have a conversation, and all of a sudden, the switch turns on and they click, and no, she doesn't hate him. They really love each other. She's just frustrated. She's a druggie. She's very accepting of what he is. And it's not a woke thing. It's not, because I have to. It's not, or whatever. And I thought, holy crap, here's a nice little bit of an interaction between people that I kind of wasn't expecting. I was expecting the druggie guy and the goody two-shoes going to go to Berkeley or whatever, teenage daughter, not working out. But I looked at it and went, whoa. Okay, here's something to latch on. What were you guys going to say?
I was going to point out that you jumped ahead to another episode by mentioning the drugs with Nick.
Yeah, I'm just kind of
you jumped to 3
because we're starting off talking to characters. Well,
no.
They had an interaction that was positive, is what I'm saying, and it's jumped off the screen at me.
I honestly felt that way in, I think it was the first episode, whenever she went to the hospital and was there with him for, I don't know, maybe half an hour, but
yep. She goes to feed him.
She feeds him the Jell-O, and they're talking, and you get the initial vibe right there. Right there, I think, is the underlying point to their relationship.
Well, let me ask you guys this, okay? We know that in a show like this, they're going to bounce around, introduce different characters, and we're going to see certain things. I'll go last, but I'm going to ask you guys first. Is there one aspect about this, the way the characters are written, that jumps off the screen that you either love or you hate, or is there something else about this that you want to talk about that you feel very strongly about? Because I've got one very big thing I want to talk about before we talk about some more other specifics.
Well, I'll mention about the stepdad, or soon to be stepdad, I guess. He, like I said, he comes on kind of like a pushover, like, and he's out of his depth. He's in a whole new league,
or where he doesn't, world. He
doesn't know what's going on. He's trying to befriend Nick. He's starting to get from a little bond in the second episode. And
he does believe him, and it's not bullshit. It's very sincere.
The one thing I thought was, like, his son, Chris. That kid is just like
Punch face kid.
He is your protester guy. He is a guy that I don't trust him, and and that's the way they wrote him like that because he comes off as a total prick, selfish prick. Obviously, he's going through he's upset that his parents are divorced and his dad moved on. He thinks he's being replaced. If that's the case, then you know what, dude? You're 16, 17 years old. Nut up.
Exactly.
You're not 12 years old.
Daddy didn't love me.
Oh, Daddy loves somebody else. I'm like, if you knew what Nick was like, you think your dad's gonna choose a druggie over you? And then if he is choosing a druggie over you, then you're the problem, not Nick. You're the problem. You're the little bitch that needs to get his personality in check. And
I feel like I don't think Nick is the problem when it comes to the son. I think what's his name?
His name's Chris. Is the son.
Chris. Okay, I think Chris. He is whiny about his dad moving on, but it's not Nick specifically. In the first episode, I think something said that I haven't seen it really ring true, but whenever the soon-to-be stepdad goes out to the church, so, like afterwards, he's told basically, you can't replace Chris. You can't replace Chris with Nick. You can't interchange them. And I don't think he was, but to that point, there might be episodes later on that go against that. What you said specifically, Rob, I do not like Chris's mother. I feel like she is a real just how she is to her ex-husband, and I imagine he must have done something really horrible because she is just such a bitch to him.
She is.
She is the one that I'm like, well, if you end up dying.
Like I said,
there's a scene in there where they're talking and arguing about finding him. I think I don't know if it's one or two, but you can see she's like coming home and she's got books about being a nurse, so she's trying to better herself, which I think we can all agree is a great thing. But it's one of those things where you go, oh, she's probably one of those ones. I just get the vibe that these two women are those kind of women that think they can have it all, can do it all, everything's perfect. The men in their life suck, and they have to run everything, and it's just very tiring. It's not very new and not very strong. I don't think it puts them in a positive light.
I like the fact that they made her a nurse. So, I mean, your thoughts on head, Kano. If there's a zombie outbreak, by watching other movies, there might be a military response. They might recruit her. So it's like, all these things pop in your head. It's like, or is she just going to bite the dust? Is she a red herring?
I want to go on about her being a nurse, but I can't because that's episode 3. So
you bring up a good point, RDV, about liking the fact that they're presenting her as a nurse, because one thing I thought would be an issue in all seriousness, and this again has to do with the writing, I don't like the way these characters are written or being written. I like the scenarios. I love the fact that it's a dysfunctional family and it feels very real. I will say that. That being said, I think they're flip-flopping or they can't make up their mind, and it's early in a 6-episode season of a spin-off show. I get it. There's been a lot of negative feedback after the first season or two of the original Walking Dead about the showrunner leaving and how it totally changed. And I agree, it's visible. I don't think that's even debatable. Doesn't mean people don't like it and don't watch it for whatever reasons. That being said, here in the Fear of the Walking Dead, the one thing that you mentioned with details comes up a lot, and I think it's something that's very understated, but happens to be a strength, which if you're not getting too pissy about the characters and look at this other stuff, it's fantastic. And that's this. When she's sitting there and she's holding books and we know she's studying to try to be a nurse or whatever, right? We are trying to look at it through the lens of knowing that, oh my God, there's a zombie thing. Who's going to be patient zero? What's going to happen? Is it going to happen fast? Is the whole season going to be up until the point where zombies are everywhere? We don't know. But we get lots of little things in here that in the background are built up a lot, certain shots and stuff. And so Tobias, the knife nerd, he talks about how he's seen some stuff, 4 or 5 times on the internet in a couple states or whatever, and I think he mentions like Utah and a few others. Yeah, and of course, he says it in such a way where we know it's true watching it. And even though we know it's true, the way he does it and everything, we're like, God, that feels so good about it. And then when you're listening to I always pop when I see TV shows and movies that have stuff happening in the background that, if you're paying attention to the main characters and you turn that off and pay attention to the background, like the newscast or the radio or whatnot, you get a sense of impending doom or something going on. It really adds a lot to it. You get so much of that in here. From the police protests, which are rather prescient for today's times, but also all the homelessness and the way people move around, because there are nothing but, it's not San Francisco level yet, but LA is pretty bad when it comes to homelessness and people on drugs and basically being zombies. So, and the fact that in the very first scene, the opening gambit, where we see, the guy's girlfriend / co-drug user girlfriend has turned into a zombie. We know they're real. They're not a figment of his imagination, and they look really damn cool. So we know this is happening. That being said, that did not bother me. I think the way they shot all this background stuff was freaking awesome.
You know what? They missed. I want to see real quickly. They missed with Nick when he escaped from the hospital. He was wearing the old man's clothes. They missed an opportunity to play a Macklemore song called "Thrift Shop." I'll wear your granddad's clothes. I look incredible.
No,
that should have been playing.
I complained about this in episode 2 of this. I do not like random pop songs thrown into my shows where they make no sense. I know they're supposed to be mood setters. It's stupid. You can set a mood properly with your acting, the characters' expressions, and the writing. Even the lack of dialogue speaks for what you're supposed to feel. So at the end of episode 2, when a random slow song starts, I want to bash my head against the wall.
All right, my last beef before we get to the big stuff, which you guys need to help me with here, is this. I think it's still in episode 1 towards the end where Nick goes to see his buddy, of course, who happens to be, into drugs, and we know that he's going to whack him, right? So he tells him it's okay, and he drives him down to, I believe it's the LA River, where he can off him there, and he's got the gun, and Nick sees it and he struggles. And I gotta say this: I've said the acting is fantastic. I think Nick's acting so far has been phenomenal. I totally buy him. I like the little limp. I like everything about the way he's acting so far, even though he's a drug dealer and it's not a positive role model. It's believable, but when he goes and gets his parents, and his parents come down there to get him, and he's trying to bond with his dad and not the mom, because the mom doesn't listen because she's a know-it-all, and he's, want at least try to form a bond with them. Mm-hmm. When they have that little scene where the drug dealer guy comes back to life, and then Nick ends up getting in the truck and running him over a couple times with the family there. My problem with that scene is it is so good. It is so fantastic. The biggest FU with the writing that really pissed me off wasn't the wife and her resting bitch face or anything. It's the fact that the adults in here having more than one time being confirmed of what reality is, even if they don't want to describe it or put it in the words, speak it into existence, whatever you want to call it. They're adults. They seem reasonable. They know there's friggin' zombies, whatever the hell you want to call it, and they want to act like it doesn't friggin' exist. They have no sense of urgency for this episode or episode 2. It drives me friggin' nuts.
It's idiotic. It's absolutely idiotic.
It is.
They sit there and they see these people do it numerous times just because they're people that they knew. They think, oh, we're going to act like idiots now and try to reach out to them. At the end of episode 2, or, well, towards the end, whenever the wife or fiance, the main mom, has to bash her boss's skull in. I think she's starting to wise up there. But
what episode is in? That's on 2 or 1.
That's 2. That's 2.
No, episode 2 is where they kill Calvin. They leave him at the thing. The first episode. Yeah,
but episode 2 is the one where she meets Tobias because they're going to go get the food out of the pantry.
No, that's
what he's talking about.
No, it's not. I just watched it today, man.
It's 2. It's 2.
It is 2, and the episode ends with what's his name? The It doesn't matter. The soon-to-be husband takes his family and they go into the
Terrible Travis.
The hair shop.
Yeah.
The barbershop. But I wanted to say, yes, that's absolutely stupid, but it does play into a point that I wanted to talk about, which is The Walking Dead. Whenever it starts, we have 2 seconds to get used to, hey, this is the zombie world now. The government's gone, and we're all screwed. With this show, we have a slow burn effect that I think works really well, even with the idiocy that the adults show.
Yeah, if they don't want to communicate with their kids, and you wonder why you have problems, doesn't mean that the kids are automatically going to be better. You're going to have a better relationship, but you're the adult in that situation. You should take the responsibility on yourself to try to explain it in such a way that makes sense, but you don't because you're trying to protect them. That's where the mom comes across as being too mommy-ish, and the dad being, I just want to do whatever my soon-to-be so-called wife tells me to, and what my ex-wife doesn't want me to be. He even makes a comment about, well, gosh, I've got 2 wives in the same house. It's like, yeah, that's ironic. It's not funny because it's true, because you're being a bitch and you can't handle these women, and they need to be handled, and you can't do it. So I don't blame actually fiance for wanting to run the show, because you're letting her do it.
Well, I wasn't talking about that specifically, but the show works as a slow burn because The Walking Dead never had the transition. This show starts in the modern world, and we're slowly, even though it may feel fast, it is slowly going into the world of zombies taking over. And on what you just said, I do understand exactly how you feel with the mom trying to protect her daughter. But there's one thing that I do have to point out. Whenever it's just the daughter and son in the house, and he's seized up, and she's taking care of him, and then she's scrubbing the floor with her gloves.
Yeah.
As she stops and talks to him, she takes off her gloves, and she says, "I hate you." And he looks at her, and he's like, "I know." It goes back to her. She has her gloves on again, and she takes them off again.
Yeah.
It's a blink and you'll miss it kind of moment, but
I'm going to ask you guys what your favorite a scene, or if some sticks out from these 2 episodes, because I've got one that illustrates where I think the strength of the show.
I'll just say the episode 2 when you meet Daniel. That's where it's like, do I like Nick more or do I like Daniel more? Because Daniel is badass. Daniel is, you can tell when you first meet him, dude's been through some shit.
Yes.
Yeah. He doesn't want trouble because he's already, he's like, he can't trust anybody. He's got his family, he's got his daughter. That's all he needs.
This is the barbershop guy that during the riot where they get his asshole son, it breaks out and they end up there, and they do see where somebody's getting shot and is kind of coming back or whatever. And we've seen this a couple times now.
I gotta say though, doesn't this, what's going on, the protests and all that stuff, seems familiar, right?
Well, the TV show did a great job of capturing, and I think giving you a good feel for it. And you'd mentioned before about some shooting angles. RDB,
this took place 2015, though.
Exactly.
So they foretold the future.
Well, the thing is, here's the thing that, to me, again, it comes down to the characters. If there's one character I can like or whatever, or can root for, or root for them in this situation because everybody else is much worse, or whatever relative values, then it makes me want to stay watching. And like I say, it's been hit or miss to me with some of the characters. There's been a few nice spots. You just mentioned one there, Pixel. But here's what just gave me a TV hard on, honestly, watching that. And watching this, like I say, there's a lot of background stuff going on, like on the radio, or people mention stuff on the internet or in passing. There's the principal talking about a couple times, and the 2 or 3 times we see him, we get to know him a little bit as a side character, but he's making the offhand comments as it's transitioning and cutting to another scene where he's saying, "Oh, it looks like some people are out sick today. Oh, the bus must have missed a few stops." So we know that that's escalating.
Yeah.
But there's a couple driving scenes where the traffic gets big, or they think they hear some gunshots, and you don't know, it's LA, it's typical traffic, so that's very very reasonable. They go home. Certain stuff's being played on the TV, but not a lot. The kids are seeing it all on their phones up to a certain point, but then they can't get too much of it anymore. But the best scene out of any of the episodes I've seen so far, just for the timing of it, the placement of it, and the way it's shot with the funny angle, is when the fiance, Travis, he's going out to look for his son. I think this is episode 2.
Yep.
And a lot of people around him are kind of like, maybe, you know, staying home, maybe getting out on the road, you know, you're not sure what's going on. And there's even some shots of the neighborhood of their neighbors playing that they're like, well, why don't we tell them when we don't? That's a good conversation to have, and I like it, including the neighbor who, you know, is mowing along next to him and waves, who we'll see later. But the best scene is where he's getting frustrated. There's so much traffic, and it's not a great looking neighborhood either. It's so realistic looking. It's fantastic the way this movie's shot. We'll talk about that last when we finish up. Mm-hmm. He goes to pull, and he pulls his car off to the side, this crappy, you know, pickup truck, and he stops, and he's looking around, and the camera's following him, and he sees, you know, the traffic. He sees a lot of people going on. You hear the copters. No dialogue, but just a lot of background noise. He sees a couple cop cars in front of whatever like that. So I think he was maybe going to say something to him or whatever. He's stopped and get out of his car. He's assessing the situation, and he sees a cop in his full outfit gear, and he looks over at the cop. Cop sees him. The cop just kind of ignores him, goes about his business, because the cop is on the outside of his car with the trunk open, and he's just putting in by the handful as much as he can in the trunk, as much bottled water as he can in like 5-gallon containers. Yep. And I popped so hard for that, because I went, yeah, this is the kind of stuff I like to see, because there's the conspiracy angle that the government would know about it, would not tell you about it, would feed you false information, if anything at all. Don't trust them. Don't act like they're going to save you. The police are going to be in on it. Here he is seeing it and acknowledging it in a way that would happen in real life. Oh my God, that was such a great scene. And that's what I mean. I'm getting so frustrated because they present the characters as being kind of not worthy to root for, but then some of this writing like this is fantastic. Okay, I got that off my chest. I had to mention that.
I agree. I remember that moment quite well. For a second, you confused me, but as soon as you mentioned the cop looks at him and then he's throwing the water in, it just flashed into my mind. As for favorite scene, that is a really hard one to beat. I don't think I can. I think that might be currently the best scene to submit where we are. And I can't go into episode 3, which makes this so frustrating. But moving on.
Well, I want to say that I'm glad that Mr. Art Schoolboy is biting the dust.
Why?
Because he's dead weight. Even if he wasn't betting, I'm a painter, not a fighter. He's all about like, well, my parents are gone for you come over here and basically like we can bone, but he didn't say bone. But I'm like,
well, she's pretty white girl and she's not stupid. Yeah. You know, but you go, okay, she's trolling because this is pretty black guy, and you go, okay, is this like some forced equality wokeness nonsense that's in TV and movies these days? I don't know, because they had no chemistry, so I totally ignored mentioning any of that because you're absolutely right. What was the point in him being there? So she could tattoo herself later because of the dumb little thing that looked like an intestine you drew on her arm.
Realize that Sharpie will go right through your skin, into your blood. It's not good for you. It's not meant to be on the body. It's permanent.
A little club soda will take that out.
No, but the one thing that really bothered me more than anything that's on their show is the stepdad. Fix your freaking truck window.
I do want to comment on what you just said about the daughter and her artist boyfriend. While he is biting the dust, I think it was important to have him because we need that for what this show is. It is the transition, and a part of transitioning is showing what the normal was, and having a attractive boyfriend, when you're an attractive young girl, even if he can be perceived as a little bit of a bad boy because he doesn't care to go to college, I think
Marty's right. He just wanted to bone, and he wasn't listening to her at all. She knew it though.
Like she said, I'm not dating you for whatever. I wish I could remember the exact line.
But actually, it is a good scene because it ties in the sense that she has. And I'll agree with you on this point because she was supposed to meet him at like Venice Beach, and he stands her up. So we're like, oh, they got him. They know that we got him, but we don't know what's going on because there's a scene at the end there too, and they play that a little bit differently. So I'll agree with you on that.
The thing that really nerves is you're getting into else too is because remember the conspiracies. Whenever you're in a situation where there's no order, there's no law, like what's going on with the riots right now, you're in your own. And especially the end of this episode where you see Madison's in the house and she quick hides because a flashlight's shining in everywhere.
Yep.
That is nerve-wracking because you see people looking to, these are criminals probably. You're looking to loot, take advantage of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Or is it somebody who's who's maybe a family just desperate, this, I mean, because you're gonna get dads like, I need insulin for my daughter or something, they're willing to just kill you, and they're that trigger happy. These are people who never owned guns before. I'm not saying guns are bad. I'm just saying that there are people who are just stupid.
People don't prep because they don't expect the end to happen. But when it does, it's like the kid said, it happens fast, and it's absolutely true. So there is that to it.
As soon as it started going crazy, I just had to look at the screen and say, humanity sucks. Like, that. You go through life knowing that most of humanity somewhat has a point in which they absolutely suck. And those moments, you just have to say it. You have to make sure it's out there. Humanity just sucks. When you look at moments like that, when they know something's going on, because there are videos all over the place of people getting shot 15 times and still standing.
Can we also get out? I mean,
they're just thinking the NYP. The LAPD is going and they are just shooting homeless people. That's not it at all. And they should realize that. But people are idiotic and they do not. They when something happens, they just lose their minds.
Just don't accept reality, and that's the problem with the two main adults here.
Can I just? I want to go back and touch on Matt, Alicia's boyfriend, again. Mm-hmm. I think we need to have a moment of silence for him. The dude died a virgin.
No,
that is the worst way to go.
We don't know that. No, the only thing.
You think Alicia slept with him? Not at that point.
God, no.
No.
Well, the one last thing I wanted to mention real quick as we finish up here, and I'll say this for my final thoughts, is this. I love the way it's shot. It seems very, I don't want to say gritty like it's ghetto-y, but it seems very realistic. Obviously, they shot it in and around, I don't know where exactly, but it looks like, Whittier, which is east of downtown LA.
Santa Monica, maybe?
Maybe it's hard, and I'm sure they filmed it several places, but the way it's shown to you, you see the Hollywood Hills looking over at the city in several shots. You see, the bars and all the windows, even though the insides are fairly pedestrian, middle class, except for Artist Boy had a really hot crib. But really, technique-wise, the angular, the non-traditional shots, like coming up from the bottom underneath a piece of furniture while watching somebody in the hallway was pretty cool. But there's an old tactic that I think adds to something like this that makes it look, I don't know how to explain it, but cool, other than cool. And that's a technique that you saw a lot of people do in the 80s. And something called lens flare, where somebody's got a flashlight or whatever like that. You get like this halo around it and the stretching thing on your screen. I just love it. I just love the way it's shot. I love the way it looks. You get a sense of the city as being a part of the character of the entire show, not just where the shit happens. It's a character in itself.
I want to point out that
I love that.
I found a site and it shows you basically where they basically were filming. The abandoned church is also known as Pilgrim Church, the real church. It's in Silver, and they also shot near Silver Lake. They also in Los Angeles. That bridge you saw, where Calvin gets run over by Nick, that's the 6th Street Bridge in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So That I almost want to say, is that where they filmed Grease?
A lot of stuff's been filmed in the LA Basin or River, whatever they call that there. But yeah, that should look familiar.
Yeah. They've also filmed in near the hospitals, all over LA, and what's surprisingly was they actually filmed in Vancouver as well.
Huh.
So even though it's they did LA.
Probably the interiors. Yeah.
Well, yeah. The thing about things, like, just like CW, wherever you can get a place where you can make a set and where it's away from people, paparazzi. Because LA, remember, how hard it is to try to keep a secret, film stuff without people coming in on the scene, walking in stuff, distract stuff.
Yeah.
It's and on a grand scale like that, when they want to have an empty like an area like they did for that 6th Street Bridge, it's hard. You're out there. You gotta make sure you have everything. You gotta pay off like the security. You gotta have let police know all stuff. It's cheaper to film over in Vancouver in Canada than it is to film anywhere, especially Los Angeles. You can imagine how much they're paying just to film there. Yeah. They were running on that Walking Dead Kush money. That's what they were filming that from. Because
that's why the
you'll
CW
notice
films everything there.
I'm just saying that you're going to notice in the later seasons why they're moving it from place to place. Because you know what, it's cheaper to film in other states than it is to film in California.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other final thoughts there about these first 2 episodes, RDV?
I don't think I trust Daniel to give me a shave.
What about you, Pixel?
I want to repeat what you said earlier, and I was wrong, because I am far more interested in this than I was in the original Walking Dead. Just because of how they handle things. And while we may have some disagreements on the characters, I think we can all rally behind the point that this is a really solid show.
First 2 episodes, anyway, definitely make me want to watch more. That's for sure. What were you gonna say, RDV?
I was gonna say is when we first meet Artie, the principal, in the first episode, where she walks in, I'm like, and he's just like, Artie, you there? Where you almost think he's a zombie already because he's hunched over.
Yep.
And then you find out he's doing something. I'd say it's in the legally gray
It's illegal.
area.
Oh, it's illegal.
It came him recording people.
He was listening in to a teacher, which happens to be her fiance, as he was teaching. That's when he was doing the Jack London call.
He has all of them. He has all of them on there. Every classroom tab. That's how he does the things. He listens in on there.
That's definitely not union procedure. That's for sure.
Yeah, union procedure. But because the reason I thought that was interesting, because I'm like, I've never seen anybody with a switchboard like that, and because usually it's not illegal to have cameras in the classroom. It's not. You can have cameras in the hallways, all that stuff, but in the classroom, I wouldn't doubt that it's allowed.
With the intercom system, yeah, and listen, and that's
even if they're on a camera, an intercom, nothing's private. You're in a public building. There is no privacy. You're in actually it's a Felder building, it's not even public. So if you say something in there, anything you say actually can be used against you.
We'll see if that's an issue going forward.
That's right. No, because back to the kids are not. You listen to the students too. The students aren't old enough to give consent. That I could see being illegal. Now, but as far as the hallways, for security purposes, yes. Because we had that in I remember in my school we had that for high school in the hallways. Even in middle school, there was cameras in there. It was for protection because you never know. And this is not because of Columbine. This is just because in general, because anybody can walk in. If they could walk in, you don't want something bad happening, But camera doesn't really do much at all. So capture everything on detail. But no, I thought it was interesting though. I'm like, here's a dude here, he's just sitting there. He's like, what's this guy doing? I'm listening to your boyfriend. I'm evaluating him. And I love the little story he talks about, even too. The stepdad when he's teaching the English class. Why did he stick his hands into the wolf? Because he wanted to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So even that little story.
Yeah, I'll call the Wild Surrounds.
My thing. I'm scared because the next episode's called Dog.
I'm not going to even talk about that right now. That's next week on.
No, I just want to point out because the whole thing he talked about, the guy the whole story in the literature story was how he's like, why did he cut a hole and stick his hands inside the dog? The fact that the next episode is called Dog, the title, episode 3. I am worried. Are there going to be animal cruelty in this?
No animals were harmed in the making of this show.
Anyway,
Just
there you have
humans.
it, guys, gals, everyone listening to Fear the Walking Dead Season 1 Sundays on Xtreme TV, episodes 1 and 2 that we've reviewed. And, I think the consensus is we all like it a lot. We definitely think it's worth watching so far. I'm eagerly looking forward to talking about 3 or 4, despite the fact I spent some time on what I considered some glaring negatives. And the only reason why I did that is because I care so much about it, because I really enjoyed watching it, and I think we all did. So it'll be interesting to see what other characters, twists, turns, and other things happen next week. So I'd like to thank RDV and Professor Pixel for showing up. Remember, guys, stay extreme. Have a good night.
Don't let the zombies bite.